to fear, now more than ever, we need the guts for real conversations about real issues that matter. And we so desperately need real connection. Welcome to Brave Conversations with me, your host, Lee Sloan. I'm excited to introduce you to my new friend, Gene McConnell. He is somebody who's dedicated his life to helping break the cycle of sexual addiction, pornography, all kinds of things of the sort. He has seen all sides of this. He's been somebody who's been a victim of sexual abuse. He's been somebody who has been a perpetrator, even went to jail for attempted rape. He's been a pastor. He's been a father of a rape victim. This guy sees this issue from all sides, and now he's, like I said, dedicated his life to helping set people free from this. He knows what works. And so I am just really excited for you to have these keys, because this affects way more people than you think. This has become epidemic. And I want you to see this video, share it with your friends, and start having a conversation. Enjoy. I want to introduce you, Gene.
Hi.
And if you can just give us a nutshell. I gave a little bit of a nutshell to them already about where you've been involved in this. Can you kind of just hit those points in your life where this you've encountered this issue of not just pornography, but sexual addiction, how it's impacted your life? Just
Sure.
I'm going to let you share.
Well, I think the perception that this is a non-Christian issue, that it's just the world that's consuming, and my story is quite the opposite, as well as there are many stories like mine, as I've found out. And I grew up in the church.
Mm-hmm.
My parents are pastors. My great-grandfather parents are pastors. My great-grandfather was a pastor. My uncle and aunt are pastors. I grew up in church environment. But I had a series of things happen in my life that were huge. I was sexually abused early in my life and didn't have any ability to talk about that or to have any way to process that. So I kept it secret. I held on to it. And then it was not only that, but being sexually abused at 9, so at 6, 9, 12, all of that happening within church circles. So all of the...
And this was the first one was a babysitter, right?
Yes, a babysitter. And so when that first one happened, it was... there's a huge damage to me now as I look back, but at the time I didn't even know what happened to me. I couldn't even figure it out, because there was one side of me that liked the attention. Someone saying, that I think you're handsome, I like you, you're special to me. But I felt soiled, I felt damaged, I felt like there was something broken inside, and the big word is dirty. I felt dirty, soiled. I couldn't get rid of the stain. And because I would look at myself in the mirror and detest who I was. And the way I coped with it was that I would perform. So I memorized scripture. I was a big server in the church. So no one on the outside would ever have a clue that I had anything going on the inside. They would think I was just this amazing Christian boy. It has the whole world in front of me. But the truth was I was really, really struggling. And the shame of my body responding to such a painful thing, and so confusing. I'm thinking that somehow it must be my fault because my body's responding to something so wrong. So if my body's responding to something so wrong that we can't even talk about in church, then there's got to be something really seriously wrong with me, and there's nobody to talk to about that. So I just kind of stuffed it and carried it. And then at the age of 12, I was at one of my relatives' house and playing Army, and in this shed was 200 to 300 pornography magazines. And my first exposure to that was very similar to my sexual abuse. There was this pleasure, excitement, arousal, but at the same time I felt dirty. I felt, wow, this is bad, this is evil, this is wrong. And the same thing came because it was the same kind of response inside going, okay, if my body is responding, if I am drawn to something so wrong, and it was certainly wrong, the material that I was looking at in that, it was not just pornography or just nude women. It had all kinds of things that were, I knew, the bondage and that kind of stuff that was dirty. It brought ugly thinking around sexuality.
Right. Do you think you would have been as susceptible to that if you had not been sexually abused? Or
I think that because my sexual boundaries were broken, I would have been susceptible to anything sexual.
Right.
And
it was like it resonated instantly,
Yeah.
rather than just being like,
Yeah.
yeah.
And the sexual, the thing is that the wounding comes for me. What came for me was when the sexual arousal has been perverted, so innocence is taken. Means my first experience with sex was not of as an adult with mutual caring relationship. My first experience with sex was something of shame and soil and broken and damaged and dirty. So that when I came to pornography was just very much the same. Only it was considered adult. You can buy this, and so this must be how adult men treat adult women. So that it felt like I was growing up, and yet I knew something was wrong with it inside.
Yeah.
I knew there was something wrong, but I couldn't talk about that either. When's the last time you heard a church?
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Have you had anybody?
And less back, a few years ago.
Yeah. Well, even
but nowadays too.
And even if they do talk about pornography, it's more in terms of it's bad,
no,
it's evil,
no.
say no, rebuke it, read the Bible, fast.
Right.
But nobody's really talking in terms of, or very few, are breaking the silence and saying, this is a real issue for me. I really need to address this in my life.
And it's not just that simple. Just stop it.
No.
Yeah.
And so the idea of having a conversation about this in church circles, so the very is a taboo. And so the very fact that the church can't talk about it brings a double level of shame because, wow, I must be struggling with something that's so evil that not even the church can address it.
Right.
So the church's silence actually increases the shame.
Right.
And so there's no place to talk about it. So I tried to deal with it internally. And to deal with it internally meant I believed that I was the problem. Not the pornography, not the sexual abuse.
Right.
I'm the problem. And so that whole issue of shame begins to set in where I believe I am my struggle. Not only not that I struggle,
right.
but that I am my struggle, which
Wow.
is a huge difference. Because if I believe if that's what my belief is,
Right.
scriptures teach that as a man thinks, so is he. So my beliefs drive everything. So the whole idea of I believe I'm dirty and broken and damaged and I'm evil, then I'm going to live that out. I'm going to live that out. And it has many ways of manifesting itself. But I never really talked about it. And, I felt guilty. I would go down to the altar and I'd cry out with all my heart, God, stop this in me, break this in me. I don't want this in me. I want to be the man that you called me to be. And then it could be 2 hours, it could be 6 weeks, sometimes a couple months, that I would have sobriety in it. I use that language now. Then I didn't know what that was, but the idea of not looking at it, and then I would go right back to it, and realizing that this was a struggle that I wasn't going to break easily, but I was not going to, in no way, shape, or form, tell anyone. I was going to do this on my own.
Right.
And so. I went to Bible college, I got married, was fully doing really well in Bible college, looking to pastor, Pioneer Churches was my dream, and met my ex-wife, but met her there in college, excited about ministry and where we're going, what we're doing, and first, when we started having problems in our marriage based on her own struggles with her own sexual abuse stuff. And I had no idea that she was struggling, other than she just wouldn't let me touch her, she wouldn't let me hold her, I couldn't kiss her, she'd wipe it off. And so it was really, and no communication about what that all meant. So I just said, well, if you're not going to meet my needs, now I said this internally, I didn't say it to her, but I said, if you don't meet my needs, I'm going to go get them met somewhere else. And that's when I went back into the world of pornography.
Right.
So from 16, when I said I'm stopping, and I went to Bible college, and then to 21, I would pretty much have clean and not gone to porn. But
just self-will, kind of.
Self-will, white knuckling it, staying extremely busy, not having a lot of time. College is, you're working days and doing school, or working nights and doing school, so you don't really have a lot of time to do anything else. But so when I got married and the problems emerged in the marriage, that was my way of coping. That was my drug. You view sex-charged images, that's mood-altering, and it helps cope with the relational pain, struggle, loneliness, rejection. And so I started back up again, going to pornography in second year of marriage, but I was also assistant pastor at the church, so I was not paid. I had a full-time roofing job, but I was leading men's ministry, doing Bible studies and also preaching, and to have that struggle and still not being able to talk to anybody. And I can remember standing in front of people saying, man, if I could just get this out. But the fear of, if I share this, it's the end of everything, because they will crucify me. They'll throw me out. And the fear of loss, the fear of rejection, the fear of judgment kept me in secret. And so I lived two different lives. One behind closed doors, consuming pornography, which escalated into prostitution, massage parlors, escort services, the whole sex business.
While you were a pastor.
While I'm pastoring. And then I would cry out to God, I'd repent. I would never, ever let anyone else know. And so I never confessed anything to anyone. The only thing that I actually did a couple times was, I might say to the Christian men's group or something, I would say, I'm struggling with sexual lust, or I'm having sexual thoughts. But nobody would ever ask me what that meant. And I think because they would be afraid that they'd have to talk about it too.
Yeah, because
But the reality is that we stay silent about it because we don't want to be exposed. And I was afraid to tell anybody. And the problem with it is, as long as we stay in secret, as long as we hold things in silence, the enemy of our soul is the prince of darkness, and so he does all the work in darkness. So we can't heal what we hide. You cannot break your struggle in isolation. But the thing is that, coming back to this had such a profound impact, not only on me personally, and how I saw myself, but it also, what I didn't know, is how it impacted my family and the ones that I love. And even though they never saw me consume, they never saw me buy a magazine, they never saw me go to a prostitute, they never saw any of that. But what they did see was profoundly impactful. And
what did they see?
Well, the best way to do it is to share one story on how it impacted my daughter.
Okay.
So, without telling her story, at 13, she was self-destructive, not doing self-cutting and some other things that were just brought a lot of concern. And so we had her in and out of hospital and doctors and therapists, and finally somebody was able to begin to help her, and after one of the sessions, she came to me, and after the session, she said, "Dad, can we talk?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "Sure, you bet." So we go out on the front porch, and she says, "Dad, you want to know why I want to die?" And I said, "Yeah, I do." And she says, "I've watched how you've related with Mom all my life." And she said, "Mom was never enough." And I'm kind of taken back, because she's never seen me consume porn. She's never seen me go to a prostitute. How in the world? I'm thinking this internally. How is she coming up with it? How is this showing up? I don't get it. And she says, "Dad, we'd be sitting in a restaurant, and we'd all be talking, and all of a sudden this woman walks in, and you just we don't even exist anymore. And we'd be driving down the road, and we'd all be talking as a family, and all of a sudden, here's this woman who walks across the street, and we don't exist anymore." And she says, "Dad, if Mom is the most beautiful woman I know." She says, "And I'm not near as pretty as Mom." She says, "If Mom isn't enough for you, how will I ever be enough for the man I marry? And I can't live with the pain and the suffering that I've watched Mom go through." Wow. There are no words. I thought the struggle was just secret. I thought the struggle was just mine. I didn't think it was anything to do with people I love and care about. Because there's nothing in my life nothing in my heart that would want to say to my daughter, you're not enough.
Yeah.
And there's nothing in my heart that would want to say to my wife, you're not enough. But the things I'm taking in,
Right.
the ideas, the concepts, the whole belief system that pornography teaches,
Right.
just in the very consumption,
Right.
when I take those in, that I live those out and don't even realize that the people in my life, especially the women in my life, are going to feel like they don't measure up. One of the greatest harms that pornography creates, it's a lie that says that women's value is based on what they look like on the outside, that their body shape and size determines their beauty, their value. And what it does is pornography strips the woman of her dignity, because it's who she is on the inside that counts. And the reality that I'm placing the whole value of women on what I'm looking at,
Wow.
and not realizing how that concept alone, living that out, destroys everyone in my life that I care about.
Right. And I don't think that conversation's really being had about the pornography and how what it does to men's minds.
Yeah.
And what it, even to women, and
Right.
how it affects them. And you're saying you didn't even show this to anyone, but it was so evident in your
In
your
my
life.
lifestyle.
Yeah. There's no way you can hide it. So like how would someone be able to identify that in someone they're close to? How would they be able to open up a conversation?
Well, I mean, there's so much to this, because the reality is that the lies go so deep, because we believe, as the culture teaches, as the pornography teaches, that sex is our need. So if you think that through, if my wife isn't meeting my need,
Right.
then I have a right to meet my need. A need is, I gotta breathe, I gotta eat, I gotta drink water, I gotta rest. Those are needs. So if I equate sex on the same level, then I will either buy into or throw a relationship away based on whether
Right.
my need is met.
Right. So what
And
is it then? If
So
it's
the
not
need is not sex at all, it's intimacy.
Right.
And so
Connection.
and so you go into me see, that
Wow.
you see into me and I see into you.
Right.
And we get to know each other inside and out with all the flaws and weaknesses, as well as strengths and character and beliefs and dreams and hopes. All of that is there, and failures, and all that's known. And that whole idea that, wow, someone knows everything about me, even my deepest secrets, and they still want me. And it's in that.
That's a beautiful thing. Yeah.
There's no words for that, because when two people come together with that sense of intimacy, then the sex is the byproduct. It's
Right.
the outflow from that. And so sex and intimacy are not the same thing.
Right.
Because I can have sex with someone, or I can view pornography, and I can see a woman totally bare before me with nothing hidden, I think. But the reality is, I could see her fully and even engage in sex with her and have nothing hidden physically, and do everything physically possible for orgasm, and still walk away empty. Why? Because I don't know her.
Yeah.
Because knowing her has
There's
nothing
a
to
veil
do.
over. Yeah.
Yeah, her body doesn't determine whether
Right.
there's intimacy or not.
Right.
The body, it has to do with the
Right.
soul.
Right. And this brings me to, like, you were talking in your testimony about women that you would see that would have kind of this nothing,
Yeah.
dead look.
Yeah, the awareness of what's happening when I consume, and how it's impacting women, and not just in my family, but in terms of how I'm treating women in other ways. And that's the idea that women are just body parts, that I'm in relationship with a butt, a breast, a leg, a thigh. There's no face many times.
Right.
And so it's the whole objectification thing. And when I objectify someone, when they're not a person, then I really don't care what they're thinking.
Right.
All I'm caring about is what I want.
Right.
And I don't think about the cost of what that person, it's costing them for me to do that, because it doesn't matter. They're just an object. They're not a human being.
Sure.
And I would never use that language, but how I'm treating them says what I really believe. And so the dehumanization piece is really big, because, I one of the things that really opened my eyes to that is I went in, I was in recovery, I'm beginning to move in a good direction, and I'm trying to get help, and I fell back in, made a mistake and went back into a club, and when I went into the club, I'm sitting there at the strip club, and I'm sitting there, and I look up at this woman. And, I've probably seen 1,000 women and their eyes, but not the way I saw this one. Mm-hmm. When I looked up and I saw her eyes, she was dead inside. She wasn't there. And it had just like somebody just slapped me across the face and said, hello, wake up, you're destroying another human being. Mm. And I realized in that moment right there that my consuming was a part of destroying the dignity of that human being. Wow. And so I drove out of that. I got out of that club, and I was weeping as I drove home, and it just broke my heart. Mm-hmm. And because it's not who I want to be. Mm-hmm. This thing has got a hold of me in ways that I don't want, and I don't like the hooks. I don't like the beliefs that or what it's driving inside of me. Mm-hmm. And so about a couple weeks later, my daughter came home from a date where she had been date raped, and I was so angry. I wanted to kill the guy, and I'm thinking, who is this guy? I want to find out where he works. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm just furious, and I'm just, doesn't he know that this is my daughter? That I've all these years of raising her and trying to make it so that she can mm-hmm. have a life in front of her, and he just takes it like that, mm-hmm. doesn't think anything about that. And I'm just furious, and I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden I felt like I got a touch on the shoulder. There's nobody in the room, so it was really interesting, and I just heard God speak gently, and he just simply said, son, you've been doing that to my daughters for years. And realizing every one of those women are his daughters. Every one of those women have a name. They're a human being. They're someone's daughter, someone's mom, someone's sister. Mm-hmm. They're not just a piece of meat. They're not a commodity. And it comes down, there's no amount of money that I have that gives me the right to take from another human being. Mm-hmm. I can't buy her soul. I can't buy what I want from her. She's not a commodity. She's a human being. Yeah. And to connect money to her is the most destructive thing I could ever do. Mm. And because I strip her of her humanity, I strip her of her dignity. Mm. And when I put money in front of it, I'm saying that whatever this is doing to you, it doesn't matter because here's the money. Wow. Mm. And so whatever sex act you're asking for, that they would never do in a million years, but there's money. Right. So so the guilt thing is the money covers the guilt, so it's no problem. Right. Because you're a commodity. And from the woman's perspective, that's where the deadness comes in. That's where you have to shut something off, right? Yep. You have to shut off something of your emotions. Exactly. Because you're doing things you would normally wouldn't do. Right. And there's no intimacy. No. Yeah. And for, in the years, I've been working and helping people recover. I've worked in the world of helping men and women recover. Mm-hmm. And the women that come out of the industry most of them have sexual abuse in their history. Most of them have been mishandled by men, and they're going to that club as a way of keeping in control, but they're without being touched. And at least I'm going to get something out of it. I'm going to get attention. I'm going to get affirmation, but I'm in control. Right. But they're not realizing the cost to her soul to mm-hmm. do that. And the man's going there because he wants to be loved and have attention, but he doesn't realize the cost to his soul. Right. And what's going on with him. And so they're both coming at this from the same reasons, just different, playing out differently. Yeah. So it's taken a long time to shift those gears. But what would you say to somebody now who's struggling with it, that's watching, like, what's the first step for them? The number one thing is that it has to happen for anyone, is to break the silence, break the isolation. You can't heal in isolation. And not just saying, I struggle with feelings a little bit sometimes. No, you got to come out. You got to be brutally honest about where you're at. And so you got to find a safe place to whether it's a small group, whether that's a counselor. And so pastors are for the most part, are ill-equipped mm-hmm. to deal with this stuff. And so they can be a great support. They mm-hmm. can give them spiritual guidance. But in terms of actually dealing with this, you need to have somebody who knows how to get out of this, who's been there, done that, walked it. And there's good counselors out there. There's good support groups out there. But you got to find a place to get in the open with it and face it, because there's no such thing, and this is the thing that I'm frustrated with, is there's no such thing as a magic wand. So, oh man, I was that, and somebody just kind of put an anointing oil over my head, and or I said this scripture verse, or I got delivered, and they'll, okay, I get it. Maybe God did some miraculous things in the moment, but there's a lot there that has to be addressed, and
where's that intimacy hole that you need to fill? Yeah,
exactly. And so you can't heal a bondage, and you can't deliver a wound, and they're two different things, and they're both there. There's wounds and there's bondage, and you can't deliver a wound. You just cannot.
Even if you are delivered from something spiritual, you still have to go through the process.
Still have to go through healing, and you have a whole new world to learn how to cope with and face your struggles, and how to build intimacy. And what is intimacy?
Yeah.
You know, there's a whole lot of learning. And
so is that what you do with people?
That's what we do.
How do you do that?
Well, we do that in a small group mostly, but I'm a coach, a relational health coach, so I help people that are in patterns they can't break and want to. But I also do training for leaders on how to build a healthy recovery ministry, and then we also work in the small group environment where people can actually take time to unpack whatever it is, no shame. Bring it out, whatever it is. Just be real about it. It's okay. You are where you are. Well, let's work from there. Okay, it's okay. You're and not put shame around. Oh my gosh, you got this in your life? Are you you kidding me? You know, it's like somehow the cross has only is only good for certain things.
Certain sins.
Right. Certain. Yeah. Like there's certain sins that, oh my gosh, you did that. I mean, oh my, come on. It's whatever is there in our life, whatever struggle we carry. There's an answer, the cross. My number one pattern, oh gosh, here I am revealing it in front of everybody. My number one pattern in my life was to wait till things came out in the open through mistakes and people saw it. And then I would go, okay, I'm sorry, I won't do that. And then I would do something. Man, that means that's going to be debris everywhere.
That's a lot of stress.
It is. It's stress. And you're hurting people. You don't even realize it. You're hurting. And when you do come out in the open, you've broken trust. You've damaged relationships.
Rather, if you came out with it, it would be less.
Come out in the open and deal with it. Face it. Work it. And everybody's got stuff to work on. Nobody's good. Nobody's clean.
And it seems like the more people that do this, the more easy it will be for others to do that.
And here's the thing: as a Christian, this is my passion. The reason why we have a culture that is totally off the charts in terms of understanding their gender identity, understanding who they are, and the whole sexual upside downness is because the church has had little or no impact to that. Because we're struggling in the same stuff. And until we get our stuff together, and that doesn't mean we're totally perfect. That means just to start facing your stuff. Start working it. Because when you do that, it equips you to actually help the culture.
It's true. And that's what your whole life has done. It's been this complete 360 of being in it to now everything, all of your experiences are now redeemed. Through how you're helping people. You know,
I was arrested in 1981, and I spent time in jail for attempted rape. And that is a hard thing. I can't believe that I was that far back in my stuff. But the reality was my fantasies were so strong in that world, and how do you talk about it? To even talk about the fantasy, much less deal with it. And so I held on to it, and it ultimately came into that situation where I was arrested for it, spent time in jail for it, lost everything over it, and it's the thing is that had I taken a road to get some help, it would have been great. But the people that I tried to talk to and give advice, even after I came out in the open with it, were the worst. I can't even begin to tell you how much damage they caused. Above and beyond what I already went through. And so if there are pastors that want to really help, then get educated. Go
and don't cause more shame.
Because that's more damage.
Because anger at someone who's a perpetrator is not going to solve the problem. I mean, wanting retribution. I mean, of course, there's the law, but beyond that, you need support. You need a connection. You need people, right?
Yeah, and when you're looking at using shame as your primary thing to get people to heal, you're actually causing more damage,
Right.
because shame is at the center of their struggle.
Sure.
So adding more shame makes more. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
No, we are trying to remove shame, not add more
Right.
shame.
Right.
So what does that mean? It means that I respond to the dignity of the person. That person, every person is created for a purpose. They've had God's hand in their design. So how can I help uncover that, and how can I help build that and strengthen that, and then help them then take on those areas that they need to take? Their struggle is not their identity.
Yeah.
It's not. So for us to use, even in terms of alcohol and drugs, if you hear I am a drug addict, I am an alcoholic, the I am thing is an identity thing. And we are far more than our struggle. That's not who we are.
Thankfully, yes.
Yeah, so if that was all there is, because what you're saying when you say I am, at the very center of your being, that's you. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
That's not true.
Yeah.
That's false. That's a lie. And that keeps people locked up. And if I believe that's all I am, then all I'm going to be able to do is manage this life and get through this, and I'm going to have to live with these behaviors and learn how to manage them. Or if you really realize that, no, I'm created for a purpose. I'm God's son, I'm God's daughter, and that there is a reason for my being, and that all I got to do is connect back with that, to see that. And my role as a man in healing and helping people heal is to not uncover their dirt so they look bad. I'm going to uncover so I can help them see, maybe for the first time, who they really are.
That's awesome. Well, this has been really amazing. I know we're probably going to have another conversation at some point, but how can people reach you?
For authenticrelationshipsint.com is my website. So that's Authentic Relationships INT, which represents international.
Okay.
And then they can call me on my phone.
And even if they're long distance,
no problem.
they can still get help.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome.
We do online. I do Skype or Zoom, online coaching, helping people. We also come and do trainings if they feel like that their organization or their church needs some help. Right now, I'm currently helping other churches that are wanting to build a DNA in their church that actually removes shame and actually wants to create a group environment that actually help people heal. So we're helping them develop groups, or helping them set up a whole world that within their congregation that helps people change.
Cool.
So we're doing a lot of that.
Yeah.
So
very cool.
yeah.
This is a shame issue, not just a pornography issue.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us, and I'm looking forward to hearing more from you and seeing what you're doing here and changing things. I mean, you're saving lives, I really hope you enjoyed that conversation. I really think this is a conversation we need to keep having about how our culture has influenced and even been part of the problem in the sexual violence that's happening, the undermining of women in particular, and the degradation of both men and women in our society. We need to rethink this conversation. We need to reframe the narrative, because what we're doing hasn't been working. And really shaming people and being mad at people isn't even going to work to solve this problem. And so what we're about is changing the tide, right? Not just stating that there's a problem, but really identifying what really is the problem and coming down to it. So I think this conversation will really help you reframe the conversation with people around you, loved ones around you. And I hope that you're going to be somebody who's brave enough to start talking about it, especially if you struggle in any area of sexual addiction or struggle that way. Bring it into the light. I really hope that you do that, and I hope that you can get help. And I really, really I want you to know that there's people that care about you, and there are people that can help bring you a way out. But the first step is shedding light on that. I'd like to invite you to get in on the conversation. I really do want to talk with you. I really do want to hear your thoughts. A respectful, enlightening conversation around some of these issues in our society. So I would like to invite you to go and check out my Facebook page. I actually have a group that you can join on my page that's connected with my page. You can even just message me and ask me about that. I would love to have you part of the conversation, stirring it up. Become a culture creator. Be the one who's identifying and naming things that we need to name in our society, things that we need to shift. you can be a part of this. Anybody can have their voice heard. So I invite you into this, and I hope you have a great rest of your week, a great day. Keep having brave conversations. Talk to you later.